Everybody, how's it going? Artie here. Welcome to Age of Quarantine. I am in the basement of my other bar, which is, hi Chris, which is located in South Slope. And I couldn't find any place else to do this because every table was taken upstairs. So, which is a good thing, right? I might actually, I don't know, be able to pay a quarter of a bill. Anyway, my guest tonight is none other than a very reclusive fella over the past bunch of years, but very socially media active and loves to talk about his love for metal and certain other bands and whatnot. And his name is Derek Schilling, and he is the guitar player, or was the guitar player, of probably, I would say, you know, along with a couple other bands, the most influential band of the Long Island hardcore scene from the early 90s. And it'll be an honor to have him on.
How's
How
that
you
working?
doing, buddy? Good, man. What's going on?
I'm good. I'm chilling, man. Just hanging out, just watching useless YouTubes. That's what I'm doing. How's everything with you?
Why? Oh man.
Well,
I'm just sitting in the basement of one of my bars, and because it was the only place that was quiet that I could go to and not have a child yell at me or, you know, those sorts of things. So whatever. But
I'll have my cat running a minute jumping on me. She always does when I'm on the phone. What's going on with you, my man?
yeah, man. You know, just trying to survive. You know, it's a weird fucking time. That's why we do these Age of Quarantine episodes, is to get out of the bullshit for a little bit and talk
I hear you, man.
talk some fun shit. You know, I know
Exactly.
you love to talk about metal, and I want to talk about just to start, like how you and I met, and how our lives became very intertwined for a long time.
Yeah, it's like over 30 years, right? It's like a real long time. You know?
Well, we must have met. We met at Sundance for sure.
Oh yeah, because probably not by like name, you know, because I mean I knew Eddie from Sundance, and you were around Eddie, so I probably knew you from then, and I didn't really get to know Eddie until he entered Mind Over Matter. Because I remember like, you know, because like me and John, you know, grew up together, you know, and I remember when he first started Mind Over Matter, you know, was starting up Mind Over Matter, I went to go hang out, and I went down to his basement, and there was Eddie, and I was like, I know you, and he's like, I know you too, and I was like, you know, I was like, yeah, Sundance, you know. Then half the practice was me and him talking about all the shows there, you know, and then I probably met you shortly afterwards, and that's where it began.
Well, I'm sure I was there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird thing to talk about, because unless you were there, it was difficult to understand. First of all, how powerful all those shows were that we went to see, and how great Sundance was. It was very much, you know, for anybody who's going to sit there and write like, oh, L'Amour's was better or whatever. It's like, you know what, L'Amour's was bigger, and L'Amour's was cool, but Sundance had great lights. It had a great sound system. They got all the same bands, and you know, we got
crowds
to see.
Are crazy.
Yeah, the crowds were fucking nuts. I mean, the hardcore, like the way that they booked shows was similar to L'Amour's, where it was like, you know, have Sick of It All open for Nuclear Assault, or have you know, like, you know, the mixture of bands tended to make that sort of that soup of violence.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah, like one of my first shows there was Nuclear Assault, Sick of It All, and it was when Killing Time played their first show as Killing Time. They changed the name from Raw Deal to Killing Time. Yeah, they had the best shows. Such an influence on my life. You know, making me want to start a band and play music more. You know, especially seeing bands like, you know, I mean, like seeing Death and Carcass and or Nasty Savage with DRI, like what a combination is that? You know, band shows like that. It was just great.
Oh yeah, totally. And I love that. Like you know, and they throw fucking Winter in there, like, you know, just for
Oh,
good measure. And
Winter and Apparition played every metal show, man. Almost every freaking metal show. I ask Brett about that all the time. And Winter was like the best band to see live because Winter would get like a 20-minute set, and 10, 15 minutes of it would be that fucking intro they always had, and before they even started a song. You know, that was the greatest.
No.
Well,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, I think it was.
I often used to say that like the only people that were in the crowd that enjoyed that was me, Eddie,
Mm-hmm.
you, and Ron Grimaldi, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and the people that were there, it was like, I remember every time I used to see Winter, because I watched the crowd, and I'd slowly watching people just get more and more annoyed with that opening until they kicked into Rise, and they did that first song, then everybody just lost their fucking mind, you know, because they were just waiting for that, you know. It was.
I know, but it's fucking brilliant. It's so good. It's so.
Oh yeah. So, I love Winter. Winter's one of the greatest. I love that band. Like I said, and I mean, like Voivod and Faith No More. It's an amazing show there. Like Voivod headlining over Soundgarden and Faith No More. People would even grasp that concept now because it was so much different.
I interviewed Ed a couple weeks ago, and like this is a continuation of my Long Island Hardcore series, which has kind of happened. But yeah, Ed and I went to that show together, and you know, like I remember being in the front, and I told the story on that episode where it was like Frank Cariola came out, and Chris Cornell had put a hole in the ceiling with the mic stand.
Yeah.
And
he was
like,
in the mic stand.
Like, this band's never gonna play here again. And we were just like,
I remember that.
Play here again because they're fucking amazing.
I remember when Faith No More was playing and they're doing War Pigs, and he kept putting the microphone in the bouncer's mouth, and the bouncer's like, "What the fuck?" Then he started acting like he was like shaving one of their head. Oh yeah, that was such a great show.
Yeah.
That was such a great memory. You know, I mean, there was, you know, I have to look. I have pictures. I know I do somewhere. I have like a whole drawer filled of old pictures. I have pictures of Mind Over Matter at Sundance.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere. I have to find them. Yeah,
that
yeah.
Show, that first show we played there was with Situated Chaos.
Yeah,
if I remember
and Eddie was dressed so weird. I remember he was wearing like a blue up shirt. I remember the pictures vividly in my head. And I was like, oh, I miss that place, man. They don't.
Yeah.
People today don't understand like shows that you know what I'm saying, like a place like Sundance, even like I said, even like places like, I love shows at Hammerheads were great too. I love that place too. I thought that was a great place for shows. And when what was that place on 230? When Sparks had shows, Sparks had good shows too.
Totally.
Nothing like Sundance.
No.
Nothing like Sundance.
I mean, it was few and far between. It wasn't as consistent as Sundance was. But the problem with Sundance is how late the shows went. It was like so.
Oh, Jesus.
One great story is when Sepultura played the night before my SATs, and it was the first show it was the second show they played in America. It was the first show they played in New York, like, you know, in the New York area. And
which one was it? Was it the first time they? I remember they.
It was
when
in
they
November.
first they played.
They
played twice at Sundance.
They did. They played
like one time Sundance, and it was like
a couple months.
Yeah, I remember they played the first time. There was like nobody. There was like 50 people there at the most.
Yeah.
And then the Inner Self video. Then the Inner Self video came on MTV, and they came back, and the place was fucking packed. I remember that.
In between that, they played Halloween with King Diamond, or they played around Halloween with King Diamond at the Ritz. With it was like King Diamond, Sepultura, Toxic. There was another big band on it. I can't remember. Maybe Laz Rocket or something. But yeah, it was fucking.
Oh, I love Laz Rocket.
I know you do.
I love Laz Rocket.
All right, so enough of reminiscing. We'll be able to reminisce.
Sure thing.
Get into it. Let's talk about. So, did you play in a band before Neglect?
I didn't hear what you said there. You have to say that again, my man.
Did you play in a band before Neglect?
The only bands before Neglect was jamming with John, you know, because me and John basically, you know, I mean, you know John well. John's, to me, the best drummer ever to come out of Long Island, period. He was just You know that. I don't have to tell you that. You know that. But basically, yeah, with John, like around like 1987, you know, like we just started making joke bands. We had like 3 different names. The first one was Oberon, which was a horrendous name. And then we changed it to Undivided Attention. We changed it to,
That's
and
not
then we
bad.
changed it to Toxic. Yeah. Oh, I like that. I don't even know if that name's even used. That's a good name. And then it was Toxic Waste, and that was the one we held on the longest. That's the one. That's the band that we actually wrote
Right, I remember this.
songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
George, and it's funny because George actually came once and tried singing once, which was weird. And I remember that. That was like around '89. So that was like the first things. And then with a couple of my high school friends, we tried doing a death metal band, and that was called Desolation. We only made like 2 songs. Actually, yeah, the first time I actually really started writing, like really trying to write songs, because before with me and John, we were just writing like punk tunes. You know, they were just straight up punk tunes with stupid titles like "Teachers Suck" and shit like that. I remember that in particular. One was called "Teachers Suck." Horrible stuff, you know. And yeah, and then that was that, and then like around like 1991. Then one day I go down and I remember I got a brand new guitar. I think it was the White Warlock that I still have that I've always used. I just got that fucking guitar, and I go down in the basement, fucking Brian Bones, John, Rich Torn, and Bryce. That's who was down there, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking weird. And then Bryce had to leave, and he had to go get something, and then they were writing the song Depressionism. They were writing that song.
Oh, yeah.
And then yeah, and they were stuck with the middle, and just went, Derek, plug in your guitar, you make up something. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Okay, like, okay. So then when I played that, then that's when I made up that slow middle part of that song, like the doom part.
Yeah.
And then
That song was really
Bryce
long, right? If I remember correctly.
that was one of our not as long as some of the other ones. I would say that ended up being like 4 minutes. I think that was long for Neglect, because back then when they were still doing over, you know, Living to Die.
Right. Yeah.
Crash and Burn. Yeah, they were doing those songs. They were still doing those songs. I think they had like Manual Labor was like the only other song that I was aware that they had, and they were writing that. And that was a song I think Bones wrote that song. I'm not sure if Bones or Rich Torn, one of those 2 wrote it. And then I made up that middle, and they're like, "That's awesome," you know, because they didn't. I guess because it was slow and heavy. And then Bryce came back, and they were like, "You're not in the band anymore." I was like, "Oh shit," you know. And that was that. Then I ended up in Neglect. You know, that was that.
He went, ooh,
you know,
shit.
Wild stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing about Neglect that, you know, I was doing the intro before you came on, you know, Neglect is beyond just, you know, like, yes, Neglect was part of the Long Island hardcore scene. It was, you know, another element. And obviously we were very intrinsically involved because our bands rehearsed in the same place. And
we used the same PA, you know. Yeah.
And we were all super fucking good friends, you know, like everybody was like, we all kind of came up together and saw each other's bands get weirder and more popular and whatnot. The thing about Neglect, I mean, and I do feel this way about Mind Over Matter in a way, but Mind Over Matter didn't have the sort of like reaction, of course, because we didn't write very moshy parts, and the skinhead kids didn't like us, and you know, like whatnot. And you guys
the demo stuff did.
Yeah, the demo stuff did, but I mean, that didn't last very long. So I mean,
I know.
It lasted for like 2 years, and then it was like, fuck this, I want to write boy band songs. But like, yeah, it's
definitely.
but very poorly, I might add. But like the
no, man, definitely not.
With Neglect, and the cool thing about it is that there was a weird, like, sort of unsaid competition between the 2 bands, where like we just kind of went our own directions, but we would always, like, you know, we would always play together and always be like, oh, cool, man. You know, and it's part of the reason why Ed got the boot eventually was because he'd be like, yo, I want to write stuff more like Neglect because I want to write moshy stuff. And we were just like, we don't want to write moshy stuff. You know, it's like Neglect is Neglect, Biohazard is Biohazard. Yeah. We're Mind Over Matter, and we do whatever the fuck we want. Thing about Neglect is that Neglect, all right, how do you feel about this? Because somebody brought up, Jim Conaboy brought up Sheer Terror, and I brought up the Nihilistics. But to me, you know, in my brain and for the age that I was at, you guys invented a genre. You really
Oh,
did. And, you know, it's like you took death metal riffs and fucking put them with a skinhead singer who, and, you know, a hardcore bass player and a drummer who could pretty much do anything, and invented this thing called quote unquote hatecore. You know, and I mean, how do you feel about that?
I don't know how the hatecore thing got in there. I just think I was talking actually to somebody about this. Yeah, I know, but I didn't push that. You know, it just came in. I guess there's nothing else could really describe it back then. But I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they were like, you know, what I thought made Neglect different from other bands, because especially back in like '91 when I started, you know, full-fledged writing songs with them, you know, it was back then I was a huge death metal fan. I was into like the whole tape trading thing, and I think a lot of hardcore bands, especially the ones that had like the metal sound to it, like Biohazard, Mags, I think they had their metal element was like more of a thrash, you know, type of thing. You know, the Slayers, Metallica, and me, I was obsessed then with like Obituary and like Carcass. Like those were like my main, and Bolt Thrower. Those were like my main things. So I wanted to like incorporate that. I guess that was what made a difference, you know. And it was funny because when I started when we made the demo, and like I said, I think that's like when we were going back and forth, and you mentioned like being popular, like Belgium. You mentioned like huge in Belgium and stuff like that. When I made because I was doing the tape trading, so I just switched the tape trading into promoting Neglect, and I made flyers, and I was trying to figure out a way to like describe it. I didn't know how to put Neglect hardcore, because me personally, I can neglect the metal band. I always have. I don't know. I just maybe because was the metalhead, but I made the flyers. I put brutally heavy hardcore, and I guess like when people got that flyer, they're like, "What the hell is this?" You know, that's what when people used to order demos, write demos. They're like, "What do you mean by brutally heavy hardcore?" I'm like, I guess listen to the demo, you know, and it just didn't sound like anything. I mean, I guess when people heard it, it was just like really heavy, you know, and I think a big part of it too was what John did. Well, what John did drumming to what I wrote was just like amazing. I can't picture any other type of drummer playing what I was doing back there. You know that, you played with him. He's like genius when it came to. He's just genius when he came with drums, and it was funny because when I used to practice with John, I could never give him an idea. Like when I give him a song, I was like, I want to sort of do this, and he'd just go, oh, he put up his hand, he's like, play the riff, and he'd just make up the most like incredible stuff, you know.
Yeah, if you had the time to spend with him, you could just sit there for 15 minutes to a half an hour, just play a riff in a circle, and he's gonna you can get that look on his face behind the kit, like, you know, you could see him thinking, and then like he does it. The weirdest thing about LaFada is the way he blinks at a time while he's playing drums. I don't know if you've ever noticed. Like, you know, we did the same thing as you guys, where we'd rehearse in a circle and we'd like look at each other. And it was like you look and he like, I'm like trying to play and I'm like, don't look at his eyes because he's blinking at a time. It's totally freaky. Yeah. Like, he would
sit there, put his arms on his legs. He'd sit there and listen to it. He'd take a deep breath, and then he would just play like a variety of things until he found the one thing that he liked, and that's what it stuck to. You know, and like I say, he just came up with such great ideas. I remember like writing Horror Struck, for example, and that break from the fast part to the breakdown, that drum fill. I mean, I remember when he did that. And, because I was like, John, how are we going to go from this into this? And then we played it, and we stopped and played, and then he just did that drum fill. I was like, that's out of hand, you know, hitting each tom with the opening and closing the hi-hat. I was like, who else would think of something like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's a special drummer, and he went on to do some pretty cool shit, playing with Madball. He played with Sheer Terror.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a great vegetable garden now and a pool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
that backyard's something else, man.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
John. It's so John to like. I always felt like he was on the spectrum of autism in his own way, just like, because like he throws himself into things and just like nails it, you know, and like, but he can't articulate what he's doing properly, you know. It's like it's super interesting, and that's something I maybe I want to bring up, but I don't. I mean, I don't know if it's for later, because I you know, when we're done sort of talking about Neglect. But Neglect, the thing about Neglect that was so fucking real deal was the lyrics weren't just bullshit. Like, every guy in the band was somewhat mentally ill, and you know, like
every member of that band had some, came from like, I mean, I guess you could say came from like totally different I mean, yeah, everybody's background was completely different. Like I was full-fledged metal, you know. I mean, John liked his metal, but like I said, he didn't like the death metal and stuff like that. He was just like, you know, Slayer stuff, but he loved his, back then, like back then he loved, like, you know, 7 Seconds and like,
a lot of punk stuff.
I'm going back to like, I'm going back to like when I first started, you know, when he got his first drum set, he would sit there and play Minor Threat records, 7 Second records all the way through, but then he also loved Police, Stuart Copeland. He loved that stuff. And I think that's what, like, he mixed those two together and he made his own style completely.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
I mean, and it's interesting, like, you get into Brian Zoid, you know, he obviously had a lot of demons as well, and he was the main lyric writer. But like, the thing about Neglect that always struck me, and this is only in retrospect that I can say this, because it's you know, like, the band has become such a kind of a phenomenon in its own way, a very underground way, but like, you know, where, you know, you got, how many people have Neglect tattoos, and how many people like still talk about this fucking band, you know, and for good reason. Like you know, like, how many bands, like my band would always end our set, you know, all of our reunion shows ended our set with the LSS, because the LSS
that's awesome.
is the epitome of that time. It reminds me of how great it was for us all to be doing this thing that was super fun, and we had no idea where it was going to go. But like, the thing about Neglect that was the difference between Mind Over Matter, because Mind Over Matter, like, you know, Ed brought it up. Oh, it was Artie brought it up last week. He was just like, you know, Neglect, you know, Neglect practices were this, and then I cut him off, and I was like, Neglect practices were a party, and fucking Mind Over Matter practices were incredibly serious. And the thing about Neglect is that Neglect was fucking fun to see live. It was so much fucking fun. Like, you were
it's funny,
your anger
but so how?
Well,
no, I agree with you. Like, Neglect practices were friggin' insane, man. That became like a show in itself.
Totally. Yeah, it was.
I mean, like,
wild.
I mean,
if I didn't have to drive there, because I had to drive there all the time, it was like fucking annoying. I would party. You know, it's like.
I mean, we would play practices and we'd be jamming, and I'd be like, stop. And we look up at the window. There'd be people sitting there in the window that we don't even know, sitting there watching the fucking practice. They'd drive there and like look through the window. People would sit at the corner and listen to it. It was just wild stuff, man. It was wild stuff.
I found that annoying. I found that annoying personally at Mind Over Matter rehearsals, because then that would put pressure on us to actually play songs as opposed to write. And it's like, a lot of people didn't have the patience to sit there and be like, hey, let's play this riff, you know, like, and then you'd see people leaving and you're like, oh, it's just like leaving a show. And, you know, it's like, you guys, I don't know how you did it, but it was like, it was a fucking party twice a week, you know? It's like, so fucking crazy.
It was crazy, man. It was crazy, man. I mean, just the whole getting the band off the ground in general was just a whole thing, man. Like I did all the mail. I did all like the you know, doing the demos like to people in Belgium and France and all that stuff, and that got fucking out of hand. I mean, I was like 18. I was living at home, and my mom would be like, "You got mail?" I'm like, "Okay," and there'd be a fucking bag filled with mail, you know, and I would be doing that like you know, like making demos, going to fucking BJ's and buying those packages of Maxell tapes, making demos, going to the post. It was just it was mind blowing, and then promoting shows too I loved doing that back then. That was like my whole thing. I loved promoting shows. It was such a fun time.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it was like, yeah, it kept us busy, you know, at the very least, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
I mean,
you know,
we used to like book a show, and I used to make a ton of flyers. I'd throw Rich from Silent Majority, sometimes Tommy, and we'd drive to I'd drive my car, and I'd go to every friggin' high school, put flyers on the high school, put flyers in the town. If the show was really big, I'd go on the friggin' train, just take the train to friggin' Manhattan and stop at every stop, run out, stick as many flyers as I can, come back, go to Slip
that's
Disc.
crazy.
Oh yeah, I used to do that constantly. I mean, me and Rich drove so many times just to putting out flyers. And then Tommy would come in. He'd want me to stop. Could I put a tag up on this wall? Go ahead. It was just
Grassroots.
Exactly. You'd be like, "Can you pull over here?" And he'd be running into like a train station, hanging it up, get in, hang up flyers. Yeah.
It's funny because like I talk, you know, in talking to Ed and talking to Artie in the past couple of weeks, you know, one of the synopsises of everything, and obviously like I talked to Adam, you know, like a lot of the people who became famous out of the scene, like Adam Lazzara, Eddie, you know, whatever. Everybody has the same consensus. What's interesting about our scene is when you bring up Tommy, Silent Majority, Rich, Silent Majority to me is more than Mind Over Matter, more than Neglect, the epitome of Long Island hardcore. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, I don't know, like how you feel about that statement, but like, to me, like,
I mean, their progression was like insane. You know, like I said, I used to sit there and watch them when it was like the original five, when you still had like Jim Mallon and Steve Corrigan and Tommy Corrigan and mine, and they were writing songs like Abortion Clinic in My Room. I remember the Pines, shit like that.
The Pines.
And now, yeah, then what they grew into is just mind blowing. You know, I mean, their reunion shows.
Yeah, they were insane. The reunion shows were insane.
Yeah.
And what blows my mind about a lot of it is like just how they're like a weird secret from Long Island. You know what I mean? Like, like Neglect, very much so, and probably because of a lot of your tape trader issues, like, you know, connections and stuff, you were able to really make Neglect branch out. And we'll get into your European tours soon, which I'm.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, I know, it's so good.
That was that was an experience, dude. Oh my God, I came in. That was an experience.
We'll get into it in a sec. But Silent Majority is like, it's like our secret. You know what I mean? Like, it's like one of those things where it rarely went outside of Long Island. And I've had so many experiences around the world where, you know, like with Neglect, with Silent Majority, with Mind Over Matter, whatever, you know, like obviously that would be a direct situation for me. But like, it's crazy to me to go overseas and be like, you know, be in Japan and somebody talking to me about Silent Majority or Neglect or like, you know, like, or somebody just being like, dude, I love this shit, you know, like Glassjaw and VOD and Neglect and it was like, you know, I got into it through Glassjaw and then I fucking discovered all these other bands. That is the shit. And like, that was something that like, what blows my mind about all that is that literally the Silent Majority guys lived a block away from John. You lived a block away from John. And like, it was like this epicenter of bands that were just doing it and like getting better and better and better and better and better. And that was the fucking cool thing because we were allowed to. Because I always say like all the good shit happens in your mom's basement. Outside of that, you know, once you're paying for a practice space, it's just annoying. You know what I mean?
Wait, exactly. Hey, Artie, let me answer Chris's question about the Headbangers Ball video, if you don't mind. You just asked. But that video, Chris, what happened was we went from Rec Age to We-Bite Records, and then we did the End It record, and that was selling really well. So We-Bite didn't want to let go of Neglect. So but SPV, which was in Germany, Steamhammer Records, they wanted a part of it. So I guess they did a whole they took on full distribution of whatever was the next Neglect record, and they wanted a video. They were like demanding a video, and we filmed that video on the last day of the European tour in some like it was like a rave club, and what they did was, you know, they filmed it twice. I guess first it was like a color one that had like all sorts of like you see it on YouTube with all the blood and stuff like that. But then
there's two versions.
Of course, yeah, of course they turned down the blood one, so then they made it black and white and they switched into bombs and stuff. But what was fucked up about that whole situation? What was messed up about that situation when we came back from Europe? We broke up shortly after that, and then SPV just totally like wanted nothing to do with WeBite anymore. And then last time I talked to WeBite, I wanted to see the video. I wanted to see how it came out because people were telling me about it, and they're like, "There is no video." I'm like, "No video?" I'm like, "People are telling me they're seeing it on Headbangers Ball things," and I didn't see that video until like 10 years later, like 2005, right before we did our reunion show. Yeah, that was like you saw the video. Somebody got me a copy of it, and then like a year later, I saw the color one. So I didn't see the color one until YouTube. You know, that's that.
Well,
and,
I mean,
just so you know,
yeah, I love that video. That video is fucking crazy. Like, what the fuck?
That video definitely represented what the band was trying to purvey. That's for sure.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So you guys, you guys didn't go to Europe on the Pull the Plug 7-inch, but you went after you signed a WeBite, right?
Yeah.
And
that was funny about that too, signing to WeBite, because you know Amber and Pavlos wanted us they wanted to do the album, and they sent us to Don Fury, and that's where we did we just did like a live thing, and I don't know if the song scared them because of hearing songs like what's on the 7-inch, the songs that we did put out on the 7-inch, and You Deserve to Live didn't really show that whole fuck life aspect, you know. And then when we sent them like they got the pre-production with Fuck Life on it and all those songs, I remember like a week later, Amber called me and was like, you know, this record label WeBite wants to sign you. I think you should go with them, you know, because you guys are really popular in Europe and they're based in Germany. So that's when we switched over to them. And
yeah,
that's when
okay.
we did,
So I know a little bit about this, and you're totally right. They were a little bit freaked out. They had just had a kid, their first kid, and they were definitely freaked out. And
from the womb to the tomb. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Oh my. Exactly.
That's on it. That was on it.
They were kind of they were doing you a favor. They were actually giving up a lot of money, you know, because you guys would have made them quite a bit of money, and you know, like it's you know they're amazing people, like fucking the best. You know, it's only in retrospect that I can say that. You know, it's like how well they treated all their bands. They let us do whatever the fuck we wanted. You know, it's just like, hey, we want to go to Martin BC and record this crazy record. All right, cool, go for it. You know, like they, you know, like they put you in with Don and did a bunch of demos and probably paid for it. And you know, you guys they released it.
They were the only band that paid for any recording. They were the only band that paid. WeBite didn't pay for any of the recording. We had to pay for our recordings with WeBite.
Yeah, that's fucked. But anyway, like
that wasn't that much. It was that guy. I forgot that Paul Umbach wasn't expensive, so it wasn't bad. And we were quick, you know. You guys would do everything live, right? Like, pretty much. Yeah. Well, yeah, we do it live. Well, yeah, we do it live, and then I just, you know, do guitar overdubs, and that was it, you know. And you know, like I said, that Pull the Plug thing was, we did that we were done in like 7 hours. That was like 7 hours, you know. Yeah, it was like 7 hours. And the weird thing about that's funny, because my memory of that Don Fury recording was, because I still don't, and this is probably fucking crazy, I still don't know all the names of guitar strings. I still go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know nothing about guitar. And what was funny was, Don was like, so what do you guys tune to? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, you don't know? I'm like, no. He's like, what did you tune? How do you guys tune? I'm like, well, we wait. I go on our demo, and when I find the open E part, I tune my guitar to that open E. And he's like, he's looking at me like with like three heads, like, and you guys are recording a record? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you guys are tuned to D. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I never had a tuner, you know.
I'm surprised you weren't lower than that. I never.
Huh?
I mean, I guess I did. I'm surprised you weren't.
Okay, well, I tuned to Obituary. There's your secret. That's what I did. I tuned to Obituary, Cause of Death, and that was
they're definitely. Yeah, they're tuned to like. They're tuned to like B. No way are they tuned to D. Are they really?
Yeah, Cause of Death is. Yeah, Cause of Death. Well, unless Don Fury's telling me the wrong shit.
Maybe.
That's what he said.
Know. Maybe Cause of Death was, but like as Obituary went on, they definitely tuned lower and lower. But
newer stuff sounded. I would say
like
so.
B
I think Carcass.
A or B.
Carcass was tuned down. Carcass was tuned down. It was way down. You know, and Bolt Thrower stuff like that was like real low. But yeah, I think because that's what I used to try and play alone before I started, doing Neglect. I was going with like stuff like Obituary. I loved Obituary because, like I said, I
find this completely fascinating. Of all the time we spent together in that time, I had no idea that you had no idea what tuning you were playing in. I still
don't know my guitars. I did it, and that's how I tuned. Whatever that, I recorded we did the rehearsal demo. Whatever I was tuned there is how we stay tuned, and then I would tune my guitar to like wherever the open note was held.
Oh my God! I would have bought you a tuning pedal had I known.
Yeah.
Wait,
I never used the tuning pedal.
The C sharp standard. C sharp standard.
I never used the tuning pedal, dude. I wouldn't know how to use the fucking thing. I got a regular tuner, a digital tuner. That's about it. Yeah, I didn't know what I was tuned to that recording. And Don Fury was like, and Don Fury's face is just like, what? That's what he said to me after he said that. You guys are recording a record now. I'm like, yeah, we are. His mind was like,
well, no,
his mind was
probably
blown.
like, he probably got really nervous at that point. He's like, these guys don't even know how to fucking tune. How am I supposed to record this? And of course you blew right through it. It's like, and that 7-inch to me is, I'm going to put it up there in the upper echelon of the Wreck Age collection, if not probably the best 3 songs that they ever put out. I just I love it. I love everything about that fucking record. I still have it. I brought it. I was supposed to bring it with me because I have it on green vinyl. And
so I still have a green one.
and it's like it's just one of those records that you just throw on and you're like, holy fucking shit! It still sounds like it was recorded yesterday, and it's just a killer record. And you guys. The mishmash of shit you guys did after that, to me, was kind of like, okay, they're just getting stuff out. Like, to me, that was when you guys really had your shit together and were like doing it right. And I mean, the mental illness of everybody hadn't really kicked in fully. And, it's like it was on. Like, I want to talk about the European tours, it was only one, right?
Yeah, it was only one.
Brian lost his voice during it, which is one thing that happened. We kept getting reports when we were home, and it was just like, you talked to John? Like, John just said that like Bones is singing now. There's no bass playing.
The whole thing was like when we got offered the tour. They originally offered us to do the tour with MAD. Yeah, I mean, sure you know who MAD is, right? And that's where when they told me that, because I knew like. That's where Sick of It All went, and everybody who was everybody that was big was going with MAD, and that's what I wanted. And then John was like, "No, let's go with Navigator with Stefan because I worked with them before."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Modern Matter tours with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew they did a lot of they did the Upper Side. I know they did the Upper Side and stuff like that. And and John was like, "Let's go with them," and I'm like, yeah, but like I said, but don't they like? Doesn't that guy like cater more towards more like squat type of book places? You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I'm always thinking metal. So so I was like, I think maybe we should go with MAD because they were more into getting more. Yeah. So but John's like, let's go with them. I know them. It'll be good. So and Brian and Bones agreed. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I remember talking to Stefan personally, and I was like, dude. I know what type of places you book, but you got to get as many like actual clubs as you can, and So we got there, and I remember the very first show. There was a very first show we played. It was at I don't know if you ever played with Club Emmerhausen. It was called something like that. Club Emmerhausen.
Was it Castle Emmenhausen?
Yeah, it was that place.
Yeah.
It was there, but something happened with the club that the show couldn't happen. So it had a sign, and we had to go play somewhere else. And this was like a weird place. We played on one stage, then there was an audience, and John was on a separate stage all by himself. And I don't remember what the place was, but it was fucking hilarious. People going on one stage, jumping there, then going flying into the drum stage. It was weird. And yeah, like and shows were cool. It was cool. It was awesome. Like especially Belgium. Like I said, Belgium. Those people are out of their fucking minds. That concert, that one concert we played two, and the first one, it was just complete. It was complete. It was mayhem the whole time. There was this huge, like 300-pound guy that get up on the stage, like this big hairy dude, like hair down to his ass. He would climb the monitors, jump up the monitors, take out like 50 people. There was like this one drunk punk guy kept coming up on stage and kept like he was trying to talk to Brian while he was singing, and like then Brian started picking him up, throwing him off, and finally, like if you get like if people have heard the Neglect Hatebreed split record, and you go to the end of it, you hear like there's a little rant from Brian at the end of it.
Yeah.
That was like actually that's when Brian lost it and was yelling at the guy, and then we played Fuck Life, and that crowd like destroyed this guy. The guy disappeared. It was just.
No, I remember going to on tour with Mind Over Matter after you guys had been in Europe, and we were in Belgium, and I remember playing shows, and like that's all anybody could talk about, So John was in his glory. He's just like, oh yeah, Neglect, yeah, and it was like, but people just brought us these insane beers with like 20% alcohol in them, and like. Hey, yeah, okay, man. I can't do a French accent, but like it was wild. It was like there was a lot of Neglect worship going on, and I totally noticed it. And it's really interesting, And I was just like, fuck, man, it's great. It was great. It was great. It was
the
so
Belgian
great
people
to see.
crazy.
It was so great to see, and like again, like so let's continue on with that tour though. So Brian eventually lost his voice, right?
Yeah,
and
we were.
You guys all kind of hated each other.
We were in Sweden. Yeah, it was getting. You know why? Because John had the experience. John already been on tour with you guys, so he had the experience. I was into it because I was just all for that whole life, that whole thing. So I was, and I don't think Brian and Bones were expecting. Brian never sang every day, especially for a month straight.
Right.
He never had that experience, and he screamed. So like I said, when we got to Sweden. That's when he got like the polyps in his throat, and he couldn't sing, and Stefan wouldn't let us go. He would say, if you try to leave, go to the airport. I'm going to have people there to take care of you. You are playing. So Bones did it. Bones tried to sing and play bass, but he just couldn't. So it was just me on guitar, Bones, and John. And we did that until the last date. The last date, some guy from I don't remember the name. Some guy from some other German hardcore band said, "I'll do the singing." I don't remember. I don't know who he was or what band he was from. I don't remember. But then Brian finally came up and sang half the set, and Stefan, and also because when we started touring, we had like 2 different T-shirts, 2 different types of long sleeves, and a sweater. That was our merch. Gone in 2 days. And then they were contacting them, like, we need more merch. So then WeBite sent all the merch that they had for like the mail order, and then the driver. It probably had the same driver. What was the driver's name for Mind Over Matter for you?
Otto or Willie?
Yeah, that's who we had. Yeah, I think it was Otto. The really tall guy, always smoked, and he had a hat on. I think that's who it was.
That might have been Schneider, but yeah, I mean,
yes,
we probably. I'm sure we had a crossover.
Yeah, might have been him. I remember he had a weird name, but he took care of all the money. He knew all the books and everything, and he was telling me, you got to get more shirts. So we were like getting merch, selling out merch, getting merch, selling out merch, and then the Hang In There record came out while we were on tour. So like 2 weeks into it, that's when that came and sold that out immediately. So we were selling like tons of merch. And, you know, when the guy was telling me like we were getting beyond our guarantees. So we were getting like our guarantee plus
a bonus.
So,
yeah.
plus a bonus because like shows were good. And then we were in Germany. AKZ, maybe something like that it was called. And Stefan showed up to that show.
He wanted to get paid, I bet.
Oh, it was worse than that, dude. It was worse than that. And so we go to play, and I guess he told the driver, go ahead, go watch the band, and I'm gonna check out the money. He took all the money. He took everything.
I remember John telling me this because we did a tour after this with Stefan, and John was like, I don't want to do this. This guy's a fucking bastard, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, well, because it was Bad Trip and Might Ever Matter, so we couldn't, you know, it was like a combination situation. But yeah, I remember John telling me like, that guy's a shithead, fuck that guy, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, but it's Neglect's experience, and you know, like, I just pictured you guys being fucking mental patients over there and like shit going crazy. But
you know,
because
we got mad at the driver. You know, we were gonna take care of him, but you know, he was like, dude, he's like, I was out there watching you guys. He told me to go out and watch you guys, and like, he took everything. So he didn't just screw over us for what we were gonna get. Screwed over WeBite too for all the merch, you know, stuff that they were getting. He took all that merch money too, and we were selling like I said, we were selling hundreds and hundreds of shirts, five different shirts, you know, and then the record on top of that, you know.
So you guys came home. You guys came home and you broke up, right? And that was like,
yeah. Oh, you want? Did okay, I got to tell you the best story of the whole tour was coming home. Coming home on the plane. Did John tell you about that?
Probably, but I don't remember.
Oh Jesus! So first of all, as soon as we took off, something happened with the engine, so we had to re-land in France and take a different and wait for a different plane because something happened. So that was like a 2-hour wait. So then we got on the plane, and it was empty. So I had a whole row that I was laying down on, and then next section over, one row behind, like not right across from me, but one row back was John laying down. So we must have been dozing off. All of a sudden we fucking hear, get the fuck away from me. I'm going to fucking kill you. And it's Brian. And he's yelling. And as soon as I said that, I opened up my eyes and looked at John. And John opened up his eyes at the same time. And we look at each other. And John just goes like this. It's like he's asleep. So I'm like, Isaac, I guess I'm going to do the same thing. And yeah, I don't know what happened. Brian lost his mind and started yelling at everybody on the plane. And they finally calmed him down. They finally calmed him down. I don't know what happened. I never asked Bones about it either because Bones was back there with them.
Yeah.
You know, that was the experience. Yeah. So it was. Yeah, and then shortly after that, that's when it ended. You know, all went downhill.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's just interesting. Like you guys were a band who's just like everything. Like a lot of bands did this at that time, but like only the really good ones. And you guys just got more and more popular as time went on. And the mystique of you guys breaking up when you did was actually pretty cool, honestly. Like, you know, it just added to everything that went on afterwards. And you know, I don't know, you know, I think we played one show when we came back.
And that was with that was that right tracking with Trip Bass. And it was weird because because I showed up there and as far as I knew we weren't playing, and then they showed up and we had no equipment. And I remember we played, and I remember what was the guitar player at Trip Bass? Jay?
Yeah, Jay May.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
He was so tight strung. And I was like, he's like, I guess you could use my equipment. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm just going to tune my guitar down because then I knew what I was tuned to, and I had a tuner. So he wouldn't let me tune the guitar down. So we had to play Neglect, but tune the E. And it sounded so odd. I remember it just sounded so fucking weird. And that was the last show we played. I think we did like 4 songs because I finally said, I was like, I can't play tuned like this. It just does not sound right. You know, it just sounded fucking.
Let me ask you this: like, what are your what are your feelings about stuff like a band like Hatebreed or any of the bands that like, because I do feel like Hatebreed took a massive influence from Neglect, straight up. I mean, I know you guys did, your first record was a split with them, and Jamie's made a whole life for himself with this whole thing.
Yeah.
But his lyrics are way more positive. They're very positive.
Yeah.
You know, he's all PMA and shit. What are your feelings about the legacy that Neglect left for these bands moving forward that kind of did this quote unquote hatecore shit? You know, it's like, do you feel you influenced them? That like you guys had it direct, or no?
Oh, a lot of people straight up told me, you know, that Neglect. I mean, Jamie told me himself, you know, back when it was just before it was even Hatebreed, when it was just the 14.
Just the 14.
You know,
I saw Just the 14. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's when I first met him and I started talking to him, you know, and we actually. He was the one that told me about a compilation from some record label. He's like, dude, you gotta get one of your songs on there. And actually, when we recorded the Hang In There stuff, we recorded 4 songs. And actually, the song Hang In There, we put on that comp. So he sort of like gave me the heads up about that comp. And then, you know, because he was the one that booked, when he was still in Josta, he booked Neglect at that Bristol skate park. They used to have shows in that in that half pipe. He booked us there, and you know, and then like time passed, and then he got in touch with me again, and that's when he started Hatebreed, and that's when he said, he's like, and then I know what he was doing was he told me, he's like, I asked a bunch of bands to do a split with them. I remember he asked us, he asked Integrity, I remember he asked, and I forgot who else, but I was the first one to say, of course, man, and I gave him 2 Foot City, and that was like 2 Foot City was a song that wasn't a song I wasn't really fond of, too. The back in the day, that was one of the songs we made up, and I was like, it grew on me. Now I like it. But back then, I was like, So so it's funny, because that was in my mind. It's like, okay, I'll give them 2 Foot City. What the hell of it? Little did I know how fucking huge they became and how many records that sold. Oh, my God. I could only imagine how many of those split 7-inches, all the varieties that are out there of it. And, yeah, I mean, seeing bands cover the song, like I said, you know, besides you guys, I see people like,
so cool.
Bands that recorded it.
So cool.
I mean, a death metal, like I see, like death metal band recorded a version of Ellis. That shit blows my mind. You know, there's so many things about it, like that blew my mind. You know, Ryan from Motive. You remember Ryan? He once told me, like, he told me once. He's like, dude, you got to see this interview. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know. Like the whole fucking black metal scene, you know, Euronymous and Varg and that whole thing, you know, of course everybody knows about that shit. The guy that did, you ever see that movie, that black metal movie, Lords of Chaos?
Well, Until the Light Takes Us, or Lords of Chaos?
Lords of Chaos, the spoof movie made about it.
Yeah.
Okay, the guy Faust, the guy that stabbed the gay guy in the, you know, that really happened.
He played St. Vitus. Yeah, I know he is.
Yeah. He sent me an interview with him, an interview from when he was in jail. He's like, so what do you listen to? And his words were like, oh, I listen to hatecore like Neglect. And that blew my fucking mind. Like, I was like, that guy murdered somebody. You know, like,
there's probably lots of people. I'm going to say it. There's probably lots of people in prison who listen to Neglect, but that's cool. It's
I can tell you a story about my brother, which was just talking about jail. Because my brother's a corrections officer, and you know, he was telling me like one of the inmates was, you know, just bragging and stuff, and how he likes hardcore and everything like that. And he looks at my brother, he goes, "Yeah, I played in a hardcore band called Neglect." And my brother looks at him, he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That's my brother." And yeah, that was another funny story.
What?
Yeah. My brother told me that. Yeah, it's just wild.
So, dude,
stuff.
I want to talk real quick because we only have a couple minutes left.
Oh yeah, of course, bro.
About shit you've done since Neglect. So, there's what, like, you've done a bunch of shit, but like, well, you did Cleanser.
Yeah, I did Cleanser. I did Arkham with, you know. Arkham, you remember Doug? You know, I did that.
Of course.
And then yeah, I did that miscellaneous CD with all the different singers. That was wild.
I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that for a sec, because that's really cool. That record was super cool. So you did it, like, you had Daryl, you had George Reynolds, like talk about that. You had fucking Rick the Life, which we don't have to talk about.
Jamie was on there.
Jamie was on there, like way ahead of the game as far as doing shit like that, which I thought was fucking cool as shit. You also have a band called Zombie Lake.
That was with that was just like I said, that's because I wanted to do fucking total speed metal, old school stuff, and that's another thing that Ryan promoted. That's how that came apart because I loved all the German stuff, Creator, Destruction, Sodom, all of them. And there was one band I used to like from back then. I still do. I still love it. But back then it was a band called Protector. And they were like around that time. But they were more like the lesser known German thrash band. And Ryan told me once, this is like when internet first was web pages was just starting to be, it was new. The internet was new. It was that long ago. He's like, yo, man, because I introduced Ryan, because Ryan, me and Ryan used to start when Ryan started becoming a pothead, me and him hung out all the time, constantly. And I was showing him lots of odd metal stuff. So he was like, I was showing him all the odd stuff. I gave him records and stuff like that. And Protector was one of them. He got him into, and he told me like, yo, man, there's a Protector, fan site, but it ended up being done by the singer. And I just became really good friends with him. And I was like, yo, man, I'm writing thrash songs. Would you try singing on them? And he was down for it. So I made 2 CDs with him, which was really cool. And that was the last thing I did.
So awesome.
And then this weekend, I'm gonna do some guitar tracks, do some stuff with Jaw. So that's gonna be cool.
Oh shit! No way. Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Jaw's been really active. He's been really active making music and doing his thing, and he's a fucking super talented guy. So that's fucking awesome. All right, we have 30 seconds.
Okay.
I want to thank you for being on.
Thank you, Artie. It's so cool. I'm honored.
If there's anybody who has never heard Neglect, I doubt there is, that's watching this, or Zombie Lake, or the Miscellaneous comp, or anything Derek's done, he's fucking amazing. And thank you for watching Age of Quarantine, and thank you for fucking being on. I love you, dude.
I love you too, bro. Thank you so much, Artie, man. It's great seeing you.